Does anybody here live in Pemberton? Oh, good, a couple of you. Well, have a good night tonight. Our story begins in the 19-teens, and it's sort of a dark and stormy night over winter break. And there are three people in this dorm. There's one young woman who nobody knows what her name is. We'll call her Angela. There's Mary Hawkins, who was the dorm mother at the time, or the matron. And there was a janitor. Some people say that he was hired from, that he had been living on the Ford farm at Ashmore Estates, and they had hired him. And basically, for whatever reason, Angela couldn't go home on break. Everybody else was gone, but maybe she couldn't get a ride, or her family didn't want to come and pick her up, or she couldn't afford it. Whatever the reason, she's there by herself, essentially. So she feels, to kill some time, she'll go up to the 4th floor to play the piano. And she's up there, and she's sort of in her own little world playing the piano. And the janitor creeps up behind her and attacks her, brutally beats her. She's just within an inch of her life, bloody, bruised, can barely move, but somehow, as the janitor escapes, he goes and flees. She crawls down to Mary Hawkins's room and tries to get her attention, tries to scream, but the only sounds that come out are like gurgling sounds. She tries scratching at the door, but Mary Hawkins in the room is terrified of this. She doesn't know what's going on out there. It could be some maniac is trying to attack her, so she just pulls the covers over her head and doesn't come to the door. The next morning, she gets up and peeks out the door and sees that one of the students that she's been sworn to protect and looked after is dead in the hallway, horribly disfigured. So the weight of this, the disappointment in the fact that she could have saved the student, but she didn't, it just drives her insane, and she has to be committed to the Kankakee Mental Institution. Now, ever since then, people have seen strange things in the dorm. One of the earliest stories is that the furniture became rearranged and messed up one night. Other people have seen footprints on the floor that they couldn't scrub away. There was another woman, or a group of young women, who saw somebody walking around in a nightgown asking for safety pins, and they thought, well, that was strange, so they followed her, and she went up to the stairs to the 4th floor, which of course is closed. Nobody can go up there. There is a piano up there, by the way. And she disappeared when she went up to the stairs. There was another incident where a woman awoke one night to see somebody standing by her bed. At first she thought it was her roommate, but as her eyes cleared, she saw that this is not somebody that she recognized. So those are the sightings of this allegedly murdered girl. Now, there's other people who say that, no, it's not her, it's Mary Hawkins who haunts the hall. And Mary Hawkins watches after her girls, making sure that the door is locked when it's supposed to be locked. People say that she sort of goes around and does a lot of housekeeping. People will say they see a light on in the upper floor. Now, these are the stories, but what is the truth? Mary Hawkins was a real person. This is a photo of her. This is the only known photo of Mary Hawkins. It's from a yearbook. And she was dorm mother basically from when the dorm opened in, I believe it was in 1908, until 1918. And she actually was committed to the Kankakee State Asylum because in her last years, and she was a young person, she was in her mid-30s when this happened, she just had a mental breakdown. The symptoms of this were symptoms of late-stage syphilis. So she's known for her very strict rules. You know, the young women couldn't go out after 7 on weekdays and such, but apparently she did not adhere strictly to her own moral code, let's say. I don't know. Yeah, this is the actual warrant of commitment, putting Mary Hawkins in the state asylum. And that's essentially what actually happened. There's no record of any death taking place in the hall. The story that I told earlier is actually a version of a folklore motif called the roommate's death. And this story is told at different universities all over the country. So this is sort of a local version of that. Some people have tried to find the origin of the tale. There was an interview in the 1970s that the Daily Eastern News did with a woman who was living in Pemberton Hall in 1920, and she said that there was an older woman who was going to school here, who was staying in the dorm, who was kind of an odd duck. She would study hypnotism. She liked to scare the other girls. She said this woman, Euterpa Sharp was her name, she would hide in a closet and jump out at people to try to scare them. So she thinks that that's the origin of the haunting stories. But you'll have to decide for yourself. Maybe one of you have your own experiences.